Hello and welcome to the third annual Ear Coffee year-end review podcast. This is the part of the year, the episode where we do an audio companion to the written stuff that we're doing and just kind of round up our favorite local releases from the year. We limited ourselves to 5 each just because if we went beyond that, our brains would turn to mush and this episode would be too long.
As much as we want to list all of the good ones, no one wants to sit here and listen to us list all
that
of
could
these.
be a separate thing, but we'd rather keep that separate because we don't want to punish everybody. Yeah, we'll have some honorable mentions, and also since this year we started covering non-Minneapolis, non-Minnesota acts a little bit more frequently. We still rooted here in the cities, covering that for the most part. But since we branched out a little bit this year, we'll have a little mini segment at the end where we just kind of shout out our favorite non-local releases, whether we covered them or not. I'm Wes.
And I'm Joe.
Sorry about everything that you're about to hear.
We're the two people who run your coffee.
We're the two. Well, now we might have a third.
We might have a third. We'll introduce them later.
Yeah, we'll introduce them later. No spoilers. You don't know. You heard nothing. Ooga booga. Since I need to recuperate mentally from my own existence, do you want to start, Joe?
Yeah, I can start first. So this year has definitely been a year where I have learned about hardcore more and more than
Never had listened to hardcore before 2020.
Who is Black Flag?
Henry Rollins is who?
Rise Above what? Well, so a lot of those on my list will be kind of more tinged that way. Well, I want to start off this year with the one that came out close to the end of the year in September. That is the debut record from the band Rot. As One is the record title. And I absolutely love this one. They had put out a couple of singles leading up to this, and instead of just like going to like to do the 2 singles where you kind of go cool into an EP and then into the record, they're just like, fuck it, we're going to do like 9 or 10 songs.
That's always bold.
Yes.
It's a bold move, Con. We'll see if it pays off.
The record itself is just definitely just an absolute raw nerve of one where it kind of deals with very much struggles, whether it's mental health or even it weirdly resonates with the year 2020 has been. Like a lot of the songs seem like they could be protest chants, even though they were definitely written and recorded before the summer of 2020 happened. So it kind of really resonates with that. Track you should check out is my favorite one, Technicolor Yawn, which has a feature from Don of the band Swing Low, which the drummer in Rot plays in Swing Low as well. They're out of North Dakota. So really sick to check out. And my favorite part is at first I was like his line before he goes into his like verse, I guess, is swing low, you mark ass bitch. Which is mark ass, yes.
What does that mean?
I have no idea. And at first I was like, that's like the hardest line ever. And then I realized he's just shouting out his own band before going into the. It's still sick.
That's just like the. Nobody knows what it means, but it's provocative. It gets the people going.
My favorite was when I mentioned that to the band during the interview. They all kind of like looked at each other, and then when I actually connected the dots, I was like, I missed that one when I did the interview.
The subtlety was lost.
It's okay. But make sure to go check out As One. It's on War Against Records, I believe, and I think they might have some vinyl left over at this point. I have the Bone Smash one. The mint one, the minty looking one, is probably gone at this point, but go check it out where you can. And it's ellipses As One, so when you look it up, it's
definitely you'll have to use the full album and artist title to find it on any streaming services, because I myself had difficulty with that, because ellipsi, I don't know, whatever the plural of that is, very evocative, very cool. Makes it hard to look things up sometimes.
Yes, and the album art's super sick. It's definitely, I think, a burning car from the protest. And then if you look closer, you can see they like blurred everybody's faces, like they blacked out.
Unlike
boxes.
the media,
I know, right?
Reporters take notes, but from Rot.
Exactly. So yeah, go check it out. It's a really sick record, and it's really dynamic for a hardcore band. A lot of the one final note before Wes, you can go on to your other one, is a lot of the members came from like the more proggy and technical side of metal. And so when they decided to put this band together, one of the members had to go out and buy a 6-string guitar because he hadn't played one in or even owned one in years. So he was like, yeah, I played like 8 and 9-string guitars. And so I had to go out and try and find one because we weren't playing anything super technical like that, in that style, I should say.
Yeah, that's just kind of an interesting line
going out
there.
Writing knuckle draggers.
So, hell yeah.
Rot, As One, go listen.
Go listen if you want to feel punished, which who doesn't these days? Actually, pretty much none of the stuff I'm going to talk about is punishing in the slightest. It's kind of, a lot of that's the opposite. So don't listen to me, actually. this is we don't list these like in a ranked order. We're just kind of doing these in a random order as we thought of. I believe our written lists will be alphabetical. We're recording this before we put those together, but usually we've done that just to eliminate the ranking system.
No,
but every year most people like find that they have at least one record or one EP that they really think is their favorite. And it's very subjective. It's not like saying this is the best album of the year. If you think it's the best, it's also because it's your favorite. In this case, my favorite EP of the year, hands down, is Bugsy's Teratoma. It came out in, I believe, February. I could be getting the timeline on that wrong. It might have been March. I think it was March. I don't know. It came out in the spring, just before
the before times.
During the before times, the good times.
Oh yes, my grandfather told me about the before times.
Are you proud of that one, Joe?
I am. I'm very proud of that one.
I'm glad you're proud of that. Self-love is important. But yeah, Bugsy is a quartet out of Minneapolis, featuring members of a handful of other bands. Emily Schoonover used to be in Bruce Violet. Shannon Maroney also heads up their own project, Allergen, which I'll talk about actually in a little bit. And then Griffin and Alex are just there for the good times.
Hell yeah.
But they're kind of an indie punk band, if you want to slap a genre on there, but it's just some of the most confusingly beautiful, yet also like shredding, like this, like the way that they combine just super beautiful melodies and just really kind of harmonic elements, and that are very sweet to the ears, with just some of the best riffs, just straight up like rock riffs, like with the rock spelled R-A-W-K. like every time I say that, I just feel like I'm in a Guitar Center. If you started playing like the riff from like Capo 3 or like Hard to Breathe or pretty much any of the songs on this EP in a Guitar Center, you get some old white dude's attention. He'd be like, "What's that riff? Is that Guns N' Roses?"
Noted butt rock band Bugsy.
Noted butt rock band Bugsy. I hope this all makes it sound like I like the EP, because I really, really do like it a lot. The songwriting is super emotional and personal, but the lyrics are written in a way that just really transcends the personal and becomes very just all-encompassing, which I think is a really difficult thing to do as a lyricist, and also one of the best things to do with a lyricist who kind of takes inspiration from their own feelings and their own emotions, which is, I'd say a lot of songwriters, but I know some people try to kind of distance themselves from their own emotions for artists' sake, for art's sake. I don't really know, it varies, but it really does everything that it sets out to do to the highest extent that it could possibly do it. And it's not a long EP. I believe it's only 5 songs. Bugsy did actually drop a new single just a month or so ago, Talk to You, which is excellent. It's a little bit step in a new direction for the band, but still I feel like could have fit in on Teratoma pretty snugly. But Teratoma is compulsively listenable. You can just put it on repeat and you'll still get a lot from the songs, but it's just a short enough EP. It's very bite-sized. So it really just hits all the right marks, all the itches that I wanted scratched this year. And I'm so excited for what the band has coming out next, which I believe is another single and hopefully an album. I won't spoil anything, but I'm very excited to see where the band goes, because they've already just kicked my ass with one of the best EPs of the year and my absolute favorite.
Nice. Well, moving over here, something that isn't soft or beautiful melody driven. I want to talk about Optimal Crime's debut record, A Lifelong Fight.
I thought that was folk rock. You Bridgers.
So, as A Lifelong Fight, as the title describes, the band is going for telling stories about things that they have to deal with on a daily basis, and something that, like, whether it's mental health or women's reproductive rights, or I should say femme people's reproductive rights, it's something that we have to deal with.
Just
on
reproductive rights.
Reproductive rights as a whole. There we go. We just recorded another thing, and I'm very sweaty.
The sweat's making my brain not work. Sorry, everyone.
But it deals with that kind of stuff. So it's they're released through Don't Panic Records out of Chicago, and the drummer of this band of Optimal Crime, Ace, is also the drummer in Dirty Junk, one of my favorite releases that I'll be talking about in a little bit. They put out a record this year as well, and I've come to learn now, listening through parts of Don't Panic's catalog and listening to Optimal Crime and then listening to Dirty Junk, they definitely have their own vibe when it coming to kind of a punk label, in the sense of a lot of their stuff is less like riffy and more just incredibly angular and hard to deal with in the best way possible. A lot of their riffs, especially Siobhan, the guitarist, their ability to just, it's a slurry of a lot of sliding back and forth. It's just the way they play, combined with the drums and the vocals and the bass work, is just fantastic. Some of my favorites include Abort, which obviously reproductive rights there. Pretty, which talks about, deals with depression, especially from the way of, well, you're a pretty girl, why are you so sad? Kind of that thing.
I don't know, Joe. Why are you so sad despite being such a pretty girl?
I couldn't tell you. Plus, one that was penned by Siobhan, which is Morrigan, which deals with mental health struggles from a different way and kind of witchcrafty kind of things, from what I remember.
The Crow vibes.
Mm-hmm. And stuff like that. Plus, they have a couple samples that are really, really fun in there as well, which is just, one is just literally a line ripped from it's track 5, and it's just literally a line from a movie. And the track is called Obedient Women, Disingenuous Men. The thing is nice, short, sweet, kind of like any good punk release. It's, 7 songs and probably 15 minutes. So go out, check it out. Go listen to the Don't Panic discography and listen to Optimal Crime's A Lifelong Fight.
Yeah, Don't Panic we heavily rep them. They're putting out good stuff pretty consistently. As I teased at, my second listed release for the year is Allergen's EP, Honesty Hour. This came out just a few months after Bugsy's EP, and Allergen is fronted by the bassist of Bugsy, Shannon Maroney, who plays guitar and sings and writes all the songs for Allergen, and it bridges a lot of the same. It kind of bridges the gap between Bugsy and kind of a more, I guess, like kind of more traditionally like indie rock kind of songwriting style, where it's still very emotional, very like the feelings and the sentiments that are being described in the lyrics are put at the absolute forefront of every song, and that makes them that much more effective at getting you to empathize, unless you're a heartless bastard or a Republican or something. That's kind of redundant, actually. But it really kind of lets you into the world of the songwriting, and whether that's Maroney's writing from their experience or they're combining it with fiction, as a lot of songwriters do. It doesn't matter. They write in an effective way that allows you to just kind of get swallowed up in that. The centerpiece of the record, literally, it's the third track out of 5, but also kind of the emotional centerpiece is the song Dream. I think it's also the longest on the EP. I think that's one of the best songs of the year. It really justifies its 5-minute length, and it just goes by super straightforwardly and really beautifully. And the rest, like the band as a whole, is operating at really high level. There isn't as much kind of riffage as with a Bugsy release, at least what they had on Teratoma, but the guitar work and just everything is still like, it's very much, it's something that you've heard this style of music done before, but what makes it special is the way the songs are constructed and the songwriting. Because with the genre as old as time, like indie rock, by old as time I mean the 90s, the 80s,
the
maybe?
1980s.
Back in ye old days, when the dinosaurs were walking around the earth, it's all you can really ask for with a album or an EP that's operating kind of within that wheelhouse, is that it's a lot harder to do something new with it than it is to do, or I should say not harder, it's a lot less common to do something totally new with the genre than it is to just really do it well and let the songwriting and the more individual aspects of it that are coming from the experiences of the band themselves, let that set it apart from just your average run-of-the-mill guitar band here in the year 2020. So I give it a lot of props for that. It's a bit sad.
Yeah.
It's a bit more frontwardly sad. Like Bugsy has enough riffs that you might forget that you're sad, but then you listen to the lyrics, you're like, oh damn, I'm sad. Allergen, you're pretty much just sad. And that's what you need sometimes.
Yeah.
And it doesn't just dwell on the sadness, it does kind of deal with overcoming it, but it covers a lot of the whole emotional spectrum in a lot of ways. So definitely check it out if you're into some indie rock, which, I mean, if you're listening to this, yeah, you are.
I was like you wouldn't listen
why
to
are you
us.
listening to this if you don't like indie rock? Who are you? Name yourself.
If this is your introduction to the Ear Coffee podcast, go listen to everything else first, please.
Everything. You have to prove it. We will actually gatekeep you, and if you have not listened to every prior episode, even back to 2018, when it was bad, you can't listen to this episode, and we will find you, and we will cancel you.
It's true.
Sorry, everybody. But actually, if you don't want to get canceled, just stream Honesty Hour by Allergen.
Yeah.
A simple solution to a difficult problem.
Moving over to something not as aggressive from me anyway, is the newest EP from the band Grandad, which is What Happens After, released which is definitely a more an older response to their 2018 record Quitter.
It's like watching the movie Boyhood, but with emo.
It's true. It's really true. I don't know much about that other than it was just that they follow some kid for
That's all I know about
20 years or something. I don't know.
But like it's about growing up because it's called Boyhood.
So Quitter itself is really felt with like the existential dread of someone kind of coming into their mid-20s or their early to mid-20s, kind of, well, should I be in this band? Should I pick up a quote-unquote real job? I'm not saying that to be dismissive. And stuff like that. And Grandad seems to be coming from a spot for Kellen and Matt, the vocalist and guitarist and drummer, coming from someone who is now kind of leaving their mid-20s, moving on, and just kind of figuring out their life. A lot of the songs pull very direct comparisons, like Not 20 Anymore, Feeling Alone, Maybe, Without You, which are most of the EP I just named. Just kind of feel like they draw into some of those tracks on Quitter. They got the riffs, kind of the twinkly emo side of that, which is that the second wave or third wave of emo that does the more twinkle riffs than... I had to look at
second and fourth.
Okay, second and fourth. I remember having to look it up for the review I wrote because I'm not a big emo
It's never really
aficionado.
There's no way to really explain it. It's just
No.
kind of like based on like loose categorization made by Redditors and Ian Cohen.
That's very true. Including on this EP is not just not just Kellen and Matt, Sam Stallman, Jeremy of Double Grave, Roddy from Nice, and a bunch of other people. All played on that EP, so it's not just them. It's definitely like a very all-encompassing, especially with Brace Cove related people played on that EP, and it feels very much kind of like a less nihilistic look that Quitter had. It definitely feels much warmer. Still got that existential dread part of it, but it doesn't feel quite as cold, and it doesn't quite feel as lonely as Quitter could feel at times. It still has those elements, but it's definitely like it feels more comfortable almost in its own skin than Quitter did. So go check it out. It's like 5 songs. A
lot of little EPs this year.
Unfortunately, it seems like this was
I'm
the
shouting
year
out
for,
one album out of 5.
I think I have,
Rot's technically an album.
Rot's technically an album. Optimal Crime's technically an album. Some other ones are...
I thought Optimal Crime was an EP, but I guess not.
They just called it The Record, which they're not Fear.
That's fair. If you're a
the
hardcore
record?
band,
Yeah.
New York's all right if you like saxophones.
beef bologna.
Deep cut for y'all at home.
But yeah, so go listen to it. It's something I love to put on,
DJ.
especially when you don't want to listen to something overly aggressive.
Instead, you just kind of want to feel like, damn, I'm old.
Yes, and
At the ripe old age of 26.
And Grandad is one of the few bands I've taken Katie to see.
Katie is Joe's sister,
Yes.
and also the only stan we tolerate.
It's true.
Just kidding. Don't want to offend our stan stan fan base, and that's people that listen to our podcast who also stan other things.
Yes.
Because Lord knows no one stands your coffee.
No.
And that's fair. I'm not mad about that.
No.
If you stand us, I would actually be more upset about that, and I would like pay you money to stop.
So sometimes
I'd Venmo you $10 to never listen to us.
Well, if you were a stan of other things, if you send me $5, I'll send you the thing you want.
What?
They'll know.
Joe's doing a bit again, and I'm scared. Last time this happened, it was meth. I kind of teased at this before, how I only have one quote-unquote album, one quote-unquote full-length on my list of my favorite releases from the Minnesota scene this year. And that's just, I think a lot of people were working with what they had, and that involved a lot of EPs. A lot of these releases did come out after quarantine, even if they were recorded before.
Yeah. I feel like a lot of bands put out records last year too, so like
yeah, it's also kind of I don't want to say like a stopgap year.
Yeah.
But it's kind of the natural tendency of a lot of bands is they release an album, and then unless they're really quick on their feet, they kind of take a year off where they either maybe like do a shorter release, like a couple of singles or a single, if anything at all, which I think is very natural because it's not easy to write a record.
No. And
as someone who has now been in a band for like 8 months.
Yeah.
It's not easy to write a record. It's fun, but it's not easy.
And to put out a record you feel good about too.
That too. We don't need to get into that. There's a whole lot going on there. But one of the bands that kind of did end up on a quote-unquote release year was Nice. They put out their second record this past fall. Internet Friends, long in the waiting. It was originally going to come out this summer, but circumstantially it was pushed back, and we kind of it turned into a fall album in a way. True. It's very autumnal. It's really not. It's just riffs, man.
Tone City.
To
quote Roddy
about a different band, which Joe will soon talk about, but also now we're talking about Tone City in regards to Nice themselves. They've put out releases essentially every year since they formed. Starting with 2018's Try to Stay Positive, last year's Never Better, which actually made our list as well, or my list, I should say. It's a really great EP. If you haven't heard it, who are you? Yeah. Also, you should probably check it out before you listen to this. But now we finally arrived on a new, nice record, Internet Friends. It's everything you want a second album to be, not to be too cliched, but it just levels up.
Yeah, it's not not like a senior slump record. I should say sophomore. Sorry.
I mean, senior slumps could happen if your fourth record just weirdly sucks ass and your friend's Ferdinand.
But it's not a sophomore slump kind of record.
It's not a sophomore slump in the slightest. It really, it doesn't just like meet the expectations set by Never Better, because it feels like Never Better is almost like the first record they really wanted to write. Because they were really gelling as a band around the time that record was recorded and written. But now they're operating at a whole new level, just as a trio. There's a trio of Roddy, Sage, and Abe. The writing is a lot more varied. It kind of defies the categorization that they kind of get cornered into of being a weed emo band. Yeah. Just because Roddy smokes a lot of weed and talks about smoking weed a lot, which is like, party on, man. But also like, you don't want to be the band that writes every single song about weed. And Nice never really was that. That's just kind of how they got tagged. So I think on this record, they do a lot to overcome that and escape that. There's still some weed emo bangers and references to the Devil's Lettuce, as is to be expected. But the songs aren't about weed. They just happen to reference it. Yeah. They're a lot more about like mental health, about overcoming your own anxiety, trying to maintain relationships with friends, whether they're long distance or just difficult relationships, because being friends with people can be hard sometimes, and having loved ones that you care about a lot and they're doing stupid things. Just people are stupid sometimes, and it's hard to care about them. And so Roddy writes a lot about kind of just the struggles of just almost everyday life, just kind of like that are super relatable to almost anybody that has been in their 20s, been in their late teens, and has had usually some degree of like mental health problems and struggle with that. And I think it's really encouraging because it feels like it's a huge gathering and like a huge party. And I don't just say that because we haven't had shows since March, but also like the title of the record kind of, there aren't like a lot of internet friends on the record, but it really takes everything that they've learned from just being in the scene in DIY writ large nationally for such a long time, and just interacting with so many different people and learning so much from so many different people and applying that to their own music and really just writing better melodies, writing better riffs. Abe's production, he just freaks it. He goes,
oh yeah,
his production style has really leveled up between the stuff he's been working on this whole last year. Not even to mention his solo record, which is coming out soon. But it can feel like a party when you want it to, and it can feel like a friend when you don't have a friend and you're just kind of feeling down.
Yeah,
and it'll encourage you a little bit and just give you that little boost to get up in the morning, and just get through the day. And I think one of my favorite bits, because Nice is the rare band that we interviewed twice on the show, and that was once because we thought the record was coming out in the spring, and the second time to get all three members on the show. During the first interview, Roddy mentioned wanting to write an 8-minute song that didn't suck, in reference and teasing to the song Lockjaw, which is, I believe, like 6.5 minutes in its final form. But hearing about that before the song was even fully finished, I think it was written and mostly recorded at the time. But now hearing that and then hearing the final product, it's like you did it. Yeah. You wrote a song that's like that long and totally kicks ass.
Especially for a band that doesn't write a lot of like long song. Like
no,
I could be wrong about this, but I feel like when listening to their song, it's rarely they crack 4 minutes.
I think there's like one song before this album that cracked 4 minutes.
So like,
and that was on like Try to Stay Positive.
Yeah. So like the fact that they were able to do something like a 6.5 minute song, and it doesn't feel. I've only listened to the record a handful of times. I'm a bit of a poser right now. But listening through it, it doesn't feel like it drags or feels like there's any unnecessary elements. It's just a tight 6-minute song.
Yeah, and it's a tight like 11 or 10 track album. And it flows really well. I think it's underrated when bands put a lot of time into sequencing. But it just flows really well, kind of just welcomes you into the world with the more kind of weed emo-y, more like classic Nice sound that you might have been used to if you're a big fan of Never Better and saw them on tour around that time, into the almost more production heavy where they're actually experimenting a lot more with different rhythms and different like effects and different just musical ideas towards the end of the record, culminating with Lockjaw. Yeah. So it's a really kind of wholesome experience listening to it, where it's relatable, but it also kind of leaves you feeling like you can still get up and take on the world. And even if it's just one more day, you take it a day at a time. And you can listen to Internet Friends when you get home, and it'll make you feel better.
And and just to shout out that like this is one of the like that record. If you can get it on vinyl or a larger format where you can look at the album art, do it. Just because of like
the album art's great.
Just because of all the people on it, kind of gives you that feeling of the pandemic in the best way, where you just like get to look at your friends over a Zoom or a Google Hangout or so like kind of stuff. Moving on, speaking of like something that like a record that feels very like at home and very kind of close, I want to talk about the Double Grave record, Goodbye Nowhere. This is their second full-length record, I believe.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because they did the EP thing, and then they re-released an album last year.
Yeah, they did the comp thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not Goodbye Nowhere. Ego Death Forever.
Yes. So Goodbye Nowhere is the second band, including average production from notable engineer Seth Tracy.
Hey,
also,
if you get panned in Pitchfork, you still made it.
I know. I'm kidding. It was a great record.
Yeah, the production is in fact good. Sorry to Pitchfork Man.
Exactly. That was one of the few because I followed the Pitchfork Man on Twitter, and after that review came out, he was like, "Someone have me on your podcast," and I really wanted to have him on so we could just have the most combative interview.
He was like, "So why'd you think the tone sucks? Why'd you think that?
Yeah,
and why'd you say that? Did you really think that, or did you just need something negative to say because you want to feel good about yourself, there, Chief?"
Anyway. So the record was written by Jeremy while he took a brief bit of isolation away. He still like obviously played with the band and did stuff, but he lived on his own for the first time in a few years to like focus on his own kind of mental health and kind of come to terms with some things and kind of process through to become more of a healthier person. And a lot of those themes and ideas really come through, whether it's the second track Farm, which is like
The Farm,
excuse me. I'm thinking of the record from Dinosaur Jr., but The Farm, the second track, really pulling on this idea of no matter how long it takes, kind of working through it and pulling those you love close. Tracks like Actor, where you're just like, you could wish you could be anything other than yourself, stuff like that. And this album was written from a standpoint of something you wish you could have found as a teenager going through like the record store bins, and it feels like almost not quite a love letter, but just a letter to almost your younger self, or a letter to another time that would have been a very good thing to have in that moment. Double Grave is a notedly loud band. They're one of the few bands that have given me a headache after seeing a show because I didn't wear earplugs, and it happened twice. And I just go, wow.
Live and learn, Joe.
It's true, and I won't...
Fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice, shame on me.
Still me.
I got that wrong. Anyways, George Bush sucks.
Yes, but George Bush sucks. Mission accomplished.
Yeah.
There it is. I was thinking of the banner. Anyway, and while they're still got that sludgy, all-encompassing, enveloping sound that you know Double Grave for, it feels less like what?
It's mid.
It's pretty mid. No, it feels less like an affront you have to wade through, and more of like that comforting big fuzzy blanket that you just need to put around yourself. And
Fuzzy Wuzzy was a bear.
He had no hair, but Fuzzy Wuzzy wasn't Fuzzy Wuzzy.
Fuzzy Wuzzy played in the shoegaze band.
Played in the shoegaze band. Anyway, I was gonna make another joke about the production and Pitchfork.
How many of those can we cram into this 3-minute segment?
I disagree, and I hope Seth doesn't hear this and get upset.
Because we do think the production is, unironically, we think it's very good.
Yes,
we're just clowning on the Pitchfork review.
Yes.
It's funny to
it's funny, but it feels very enveloping and comforting in a way, because it's something that just like it blocks out the world. You want to sit on your bed with that big old fuzzy blanket and just feel kind of at peace, and Goodbye Nowhere really does it, and especially like paired with the artwork. I know I mentioned that earlier, just like the big grassy hill with the big blue skies and the band running up the hill. Kate Bush drink,
shout out to Kate Bush.
It's just it's just a very good feeling record, despite some of the more kind of tougher moments on it thematically, especially for the year 2020 when a lot of us feel more isolated than usual.
This is I've tried to become the in-house Double Grave expert over at Post Trash, because Joe is the in-house Double Grave expert at Ear Coffee.
Yes.
Because I'm like, I want to review the record, but I don't want to infringe on the turf. But so I listened to this record a lot around the time it came out. This is a kind of a funny little anecdote before we move on. The song Whatever has a bit of a very explicitly depressing chorus, but it's a really catchy chorus. It's a really good melody, and I found myself like singing along that kind of like quietly. And if you know the song, you'll know the lyrics. And when you're singing some of those words just kind of to yourself, people might hear that and get really concerned.
Yeah,
because Joe's sister heard me, and she's like, "What are you just singing the word suicide under your breath?" I'm like, yes.
Yeah.
But it's Double Grave, so it's okay.
Yes.
But it's a song that'll get stuck in your head, even though it's arguably not one you might not want. You might not want those things stuck in your head.
No.
But that's why you got to listen to the full record and kind of come out the other side beaten and worn, but still alive and kicking.
Yeah.
I'll do my next one. It's back to the EP. Return of the EP. Even though it's only been one album. Folks, you ever get sad? You
ever get sad?
You feel sadness in your heart of hearts? If
I was just picturing
if
you
this
saying
is
that.
if this is you, have I got the EP that you might want to listen to? It's Dad Bod's precursor. That I'm being reductive for the sake of humor. You will probably feel a little tug at your heartstrings, feel like a little clouds over you while you're listening to this EP. Like I had to when I was writing my review, I had to pause. I had to take a 2-hour break because I was just getting too sad to write. I was like, I can't do this. I need to take a breather, stop listening to Elliot and like Blue and Green on repeat. But it's a fitting year for that. It's an interesting EP because Dadbot is a 4 to 5 piece depending on what era you're kind of talking about them in. They're currently a 4 piece. But they combine like really emotional, like kind of, I'm pretty much everything I listened to a lot this year was really emotional. I wonder what that means. We don't have time to unpack that. But they combine like kind of like the singer-songwriter, like kind of like the brand that Callie is kind of leaned into. Callie is the lead songwriter and one of the guitarists, is the kind of Phoebe Bridgers angle of things. But a lot, to put it in the most like clickbaity way possible, Dadbot is Phoebe Bridgers if Phoebe Bridgers went shoegaze, because Dadbot has 3 guitarists and they're all electric.
Yes.
So like with their first couple singles that they put out at the end of last year, the start of this year, Rot and Spirits, especially Rot, and if you saw like that song live, it gets overwhelmingly loud at the end. It gets like a wave of reverb and guitar gets just drenched over you and you just get soaked in reverb. But as a way of kind of coping with the fact that they weren't able to get together and record their album on their studio full length as a full band, 2 of the members, Callie and Wilson, who's one of the guitarists and kind of like a multi-instrumentalist extraordinaire and producer, got together in Wilson's studio to record some of these songs. And one of the songs is actually an older song that is a live favorite. And I think some of the others may have been performed live in a full band context. Don't quote me on that, but they are songs we have not heard before, but we're hearing them in a very sparse, very kind of, it's just the you and the blackness of the void, kind of behind you. It's very personal. It's like you're getting your own like personal, I don't want to say like your own personal concert, because that's just something that people like actually pay for now. Yeah. Except it's like just Ben Gifford over Zoom. It's really interesting and almost fascinating to hear kind of a reinvention of the sound where it almost feels like they should have gone this way first. It feels like much more natural, like this kind of more spared, just kind of acoustic guitar. I think there's some pedal steel, some ambient like effects, very atmospheric overall. It lends itself to the songwriting a lot more than you might think, like something like a 3 guitar shoegaze band would almost. And like I'm bummed that we didn't get a full length Dadbot album this year, and I'm very excited for when that does finally get recorded and come out. Like I can't even put into words how excited I am, but I'm still so grateful that we got these songs on their own in a different context, where the core sentiments and just like the ideas that Callie, who wrote all the lyrics, is writing about and singing about, really it cuts even deeper than it would if there were waves of guitars surrounding it. And so if and when we do hear these songs in that full band context, it'll be totally different. It'll completely change the way that I at least hear them, and I can pretty much guarantee that. Because this EP changed the way I heard a lot of these songs when I heard them live or just heard the band in general live. So I think it shows a lot of range on both Callie's part to kind of adapt these songs to a completely different sound palette, and also to Wilson's strengths as a producer and kind of instrumentation wizard. And their dynamic as a pair of like, creatives working to make this EP one of the most like quietly devastating things you'll hear all year. So I don't recommend listening to this one if you're like a little drunk or like a little sad already.
If you're on the brink of like,
if you're already on the brink of a meltdown,
of
like
needing a good cry,
if you need that catharsis,
yes,
you know exactly what to do. Skip the Phoebe Bridgers. Fuck Kyoto. Bad song. Don't cancel me. Actually, if you do cancel me, it won't work because I'm right. But if you need like that final kind of push over the cliff of sadness, hey, give this one a shot. But if you're feeling pretty good today, I might not recommend listening to this one. And I mean that in the highest possible praise. I'm very good at making it sound like I don't like these EPs when actually I really, really, really love them a lot. Journalism. Why am I bad at it? Anyways, yeah, Dadbot's precursor is... I haven't listened to it often since it came out, but when I have, it's it's a all-encompassing experience. Like you just kind of like, oh, I listened to one song, guess I have to listen to all of it, and just kind of be in this world for a little bit. And it's a well-made world, even if you might feel a little sad, a little damp after you're done.
Mm-hmm.
A little bit like, oh man. Anyways, stream Dad Bod.
Yes. We're going back to the heavy music here for my list. I accidentally grabbed 6, and I can't figure out which one I want to cut since I've loved all of these so much. So I'm going to just cheat and do 6. This is also a bit of a cheat because this is the most recent EP from the band Dirty Junk, which is Open Then Spit. They put out a record, an EP last year, which was On Your Knees, and they put out a full length 2 years ago, which was Snot. And it seems like as the band progresses, they only get meaner, like just sonically meaner. They get more feral. It just, as they get comfortable with their as Ren and Ace gel more as a songwriting pair, as Ren gets much better or more comfortable, I shouldn't say better, gets more comfortable at writing lyrics and playing guitar and spending more time experimenting, the releases just get that much better. New to this release, Ren does a lot more screams. In the past, it's just been Ren's kind of trademark bark. But instead of like doing like whole song screaming, Ren really goes to punctuating specific moments and trying to encapsulate those feelings. Songs like Phobic and Hate You really are the ones that kind of, especially Hate You, like are the ones that stick to your mind because it's just I hate you, I hate you, I hate you, and then usually there's some sort of just absolutely kind of ragged growl that follows it up. And a lot of the guitars, they use some sort of like, I don't know if it's a bit crusher or something that really like degrades the tone of the guitars and just some of that more production element. It's angular, it's rough, it's a tough pill to swallow when listening to. This is another release that just really just grabs at you and just is grating in the best way possible. And it really, Ren leans into her like desire to use what she has in the band as a platform. I know there's a couple of tracks where they use samples from like protests Ren has been a part of, like chanting. I know she was a part of something, it was related to driving and something related to driving. I can't think off the top of my head, and like chants from that are included. So it really also feels like at home in 2020 without being something that they're using it as a gimmick. This is always has been a band where social awareness, social justice, and making sure their ability to use a microphone is never wasted is at the forefront. And this was one of the ones that was pushed back due to the things that happened here this year, the civil unrest that started here in Minneapolis. Go check it out. It's a 5-track EP. A couple of songs crack, 3 minutes. One's 5 minutes long, but it's they get into prog rock territory with their 5-minute songs. Just kidding. But go check it out. It's a great record. So
yeah, my last pick for my favorite releases of the year, saying releases because again, this is probably the shortest thing. It's only 9 minutes, 3 songs. It's listed on Spotify as a single, but it's usually single is max 2 songs, unless it's like some weird like CD single from the 90s. So we're calling it an EP.
Got that C side of the 7-inch.
It's got that C side of the vinyl. You just you had it on the top, you had it on the bottom, then you just hold it vertically, and it rotates like a ballerina.
Some Jack White level shit. It's under the label.
Yeah, go. You gotta actually peel the groove yourself, and just recite magical incantations to yourself. Jack White aside, the release I'm talking about is Alien Book Club's EP single release. Awesome thing that they put out into the world, and I'm not even having fun anymore. They put it out in the end of May, and it's weird because we've never gotten a full length Alien Book Club record. We've gotten a few EPs, a handful of random singles. Like their Bandcamp is full of, I guess, more kind of album length stuff, but that's because the core creative duo that founded the band and was initially kind of like the main songwriters, Anita and Andrea, have been making music together or in some capacity for a really, really long time under various names. But we've not gotten a full length under the actual Alien Book Club moniker, I think, in any official capacity. Their self-titled release might count, but this song, or this release, I initially thought it was just a single 9-minute song because of how well it all flowed together. Yeah. But that just turns out that Anita sent me the wrong files, and they accidentally sent me. I actually got sent the full. Just EP is one. Like, oh, it's just like one 9-minute song. What's the actual title? And they're like, no, that's the whole EP. I'm like, oh, what?
Word.
Oh, worm. But Alien Book Club is a band.
There it is.
There it is. You said it. Alien Book Club is a band that really can't be categorized, and I know it's kind of cliche to say, but like, I feel like any band that has a saxophone player that isn't a ska band is kind of asking for trouble in the best way. Yeah. And I'm not just saying that because I am that. Yeah. We're just indie rock, and for some reason Dylan's like saxophone. But I think Alien Book Club actually like leans into the kind of weirdness that comes with having a sax player, a designated like synth player, and just kind of all the members of the band being very multi-talented and playing a lot of different instruments, having a lot of different creative impulses that they can act on and take advantage of.
Yeah, it's funny because they were individually, some of the members were posting about their Spotify Wraps, and a couple of them were just like, yeah, Frank Zappa has been up there for like the last 4 years. And you're like, yeah, it checks out in the best way possible.
Yeah, that's a good point. But these 3 songs are some of their live staples. Like I've only seen them live, I think, twice now. Yeah, unfortunately. I say unfortunately because I wish I'd seen them more. Not because I'm like, dang it, they sucked.
I wish I never saw them at all.
I wouldn't be talking about how awesome their EP was if I didn't like their live show, because their live show is awesome.
But shout out Barefoot Man.
Shout out Barefoot Man. Hope his feet are okay. Feet overall not good. His feet still hope they're doing okay. Hope he found some socks. If anyone got the reference,
shout out because you're just
shout out because you were at the Seward show. Yeah. Anyways, not to get up our own asses too much. These 3 songs are kind of bring about the best of what Alien Book Club does, where it's kind of no song sounds totally alike, but they all really take advantage of everything that each member brings to the table, whether that's just like the different guitar abilities for like different guitar sounds, the synth stuff, like some horn lines. And I think like there's, at least on Spotify, their self-titled EP, which I don't think it actually exists. I think it's just like a weird Spotify or like streaming only release to just kind of get some of their most well-known songs out there. I think this is kind of the spiritual sequel to that, in that these songs are some of their live staples that'll be familiar to anyone that's even seen the band once. And I think that's, again, because it really leans into all the things that make the band special and what makes them such an engaging band to just follow, even if you don't get too much into like the Bandcamp wormhole that is their page. It's a head spin of a release. It's over and done in just over 9 minutes. And again, it feels like it could be just one hella long 9-minute song, but this is Alien Book Club, not post rock. So, and if you also, side note, if you call yourself post rock and you've never released a song over 6 minutes, stop calling yourself post rock. Not to geeky, but that doesn't make any sense. Anyways, seriously, Alien Book Club is a band that I feel like it needs to be given more recognition, and you don't hear a lot of people talking about them or like tweeting about them or posting about them on social media like you would some of the other bands even that we've mentioned here, and that's not to slight those bands at all. No. But Alien Book Club is a band that I think is really kind of
a sleeper act.
They're a sleeper act. You hear a lot about them via word of mouth. Because like anybody that has checked out their stuff online or seen their live set has told people. You just want to tell people, like, I don't know how to explain this, but it's so cool. You got to see their next show. You got to check out their music somehow. And in a way, that's what I'm doing right now. I don't really fully know how to describe this EP. They even put out actually 2 singles, like an actual single, just an A-side, B-side later in the year of 2 songs they put out on charity comps in those first couple months of 2020, one of which was ours. Aww. So that's special. But check that single out too. But this release, I think, is really kind of the defining moment for them in 2020, as much as a 3-song EP can be. That's Alien Book Club's And I'm Not Even Having Fun Anymore. Because, be honest, we have not been having a lot of fun lately.
No.
Not having a lot of fun. Fun, it's out the wazoo.
That's true.
Vibes not on whoopty.
And before we move into the honorable mention section, I just going to mention my last one. I kind of cheated and did 6 wrong because I forgot about it. I should say, not that I forgot, is I didn't count right.
This is why we don't number our lists.
That's true.
Joe can't count past 2.
Anyway, I'm gonna shout out Casual's Rare Form EP. Was released like right away in 2020. It was one of my like favorite releases from the first half of this year. It's hard for me to pick like a record of the year, but this is definitely up there. It is the band. It is the band.
Bob Dylan and the band.
Big Pink. Take a load off, Annie. Anyway, so Rare Form is kind of the band's return from their release in 2017, which was Come Around. They hadn't been really... Most of the band is in another band called Infinite Me, and I think they put something out in 2018. It doesn't matter. This is them like back in their just like their prime, just really hungry to be playing music. Arf as this trio. It's 10 songs in 11 minutes. If that gives you any idea, the longest song is 1 minute and 35 seconds.
Any song longer than that is prog rock.
It's true. One of my favorites to shout out is Otto, which uses the classic "Now You've Got a Friend in the Diamond Business," which every Minnesotan is like, I know that one.
It's the thing that I know.
It's the Leonardo DiCaprio meme. But there is no fat on those bones. It's all meat. It's all rare muscle that is just really, the band is hungry. The band really wants to play music. And if you haven't checked out Casual live, the same time we saw, at least I saw Alien Book Club, we had just literally come over from seeing Casual.
Casual Dad Bod Nice and Mover Shaker.
Oh, that show, one of the last shows I got to see.
That show was so good that they banned dancing.
That's true. It's
what is this, fucking Footloose?
And it's just Paul, the drummer, does a lot of the vocals, and so does Zach, the bassist. But it's interesting because the way Paul plays, it's not kind of a traditional, as traditional hardcore drumming. It's not like just like a 4 on the floor. They're just like hacking away at it. He's very much moves around the kit. He's playing various things. He's grabbing a cymbal. He's smashing a cymbal. He's choking it, and he's moving around. It's a very tight
all
way.
All while singing,
and it's insane. I'm just
shouting.
Like, how do you
hardcore?
How do you do this? And it's a band that's frantic, and they're moving around, and Dino's riffing, and it's just a great time.
They're like a band, like you listen to it and like makes you want to destroy public property.
Yes,
in the best way possible.
They're a band that's so like frantic that it's hard to even mosh. You're just like, because when we went to that show,
you're just kind of like causing violence.
You're just like, fuck it, we're throwing stuff through the windows.
Yeah,
like,
I brought my boxing gloves. Time to go to town.
So
my favorite, another little anecdote with Casual is one time we had like some weird anti-abortion speaker at my school, at both Joe and I's old school, because that's how they are sometimes.
Shout out Northwestern.
No. Vibes on Whoopty. The only way I coped with that was by just listening to this EP like 4 straight times in a row and just ignoring everything that was being said. And let me tell you, if someone's just saying some stuff you don't really want to hear, or if you just need to block something out, hey, you got 11 minutes?
Yeah.
Casual.
Yeah.
So it's time to fly blind.
It's definitely one of those releases where like if I don't want to quite go into work and I'm there a little early and I just need something to get through the morning,
just scream on the way like you're driving to your job.
Yeah, like the car ride over, I've definitely just put this on and just like grip the wheel and just like, we can do this.
Yeah, this is music for a capitalist society, even if it's not music that is capitalist in its nature.
So
it helps you cope.
Yeah, so check out Rare Form. It was put out earlier, this like in January, so one of the first releases of the year. So go give it a listen. So we should move into honorable mentions.
Yeah, I'll power through my local ones, and then you can go. I'll be pretty quick on these. Another favorite EP from the year that I just didn't have space for is Oftener's Daydream. It's really sweet, kind of indie rock, really good songwriting, really good production. Overall, just a really solid EP. But yeah, it's another album or release rather, where if you just listen to like the melodies and like the instrumentals, you'll just kind of be bopping your head, having a good time. You listen to the lyrics and you're like, oh man, you good? And I think a lot of music that like kind of toes that line where it's like, I don't want to go full Remo Drive and be like, have you read the lyrics though? Have you listened to the lyrics though? No, your music still sucks, Eric. I don't want to make that comparison.
Natural everyday degradation.
More like degradation of your songwriting style, punk. Fantano made your life better and then you decide to suck it. Sorry about that, everybody. Can you tell I have strong feelings? Anyways, Oftener's Daydream is a delightful EP. The members that I've met, mostly just Nate, are all delightful. They're all very talented songwriters and musicians. Give this EP a check or a listen. Check it out. That's what I meant to say. Because you'd be missing out if you didn't. It's a real treat. My next honorable mention is Thank You, I'm Sorry's I'm Glad We're Friends. This band put out 2 releases this year, but one was a collection of acoustic demos that came out earlier in the year, towards the end of the winter, and that was the Malta House. And the songwriting was really good. I really liked the kind of the lyrics on a lot of the songs, but it gets a little bit one note when you're just listening to kind of acoustic stuff over and over again. But fortunately, the full band setup for I'm Glad We're Friends really befits the lyrics and the core songs themselves so much better than just solo acoustic strumming does. The full 3.5 member band, because Abe isn't really a member, but Abe is also totally a member. And it's the core trio of Colleen, Sage, and B. It's just a fantastic kind of emo influenced like indie rock record. It's signed, they're on Count Your Lucky Stars, so you kind of know what you're getting into in the best way possible. And it's just it's another record that kind of covers the full range of emotions. But I think overall it's like it does kind of make you think like, yeah, I'm really grateful for my friends. I'm grateful for the things that I have in my life to be grateful for. It's just kind of, you listen to it on a down day and you get lifted up a little bit. So shout out to Thank You, I'm Sorry. Next, since Abe's record doesn't come out till the beginning of January, and we can't include it here because otherwise I totally would, I'll just shout out the 3 singles, soon to be 4. By the time you're hearing this, it'll have been 4 because there's another single coming out this week. Abe Anderson's dropped a few singles over the year, and then now 2 singles leading up to his solo debut, and they've just kind of charted his growth as a songwriter and as a producer more so. He's really leaned into the production aspect as he's found interest and more just he's had a lot of time to do that, because what else are you going to do when you're quarantined? Get really good at, even better at producing music and learning how to make new synths. So I'm really excited for his record to come out. And if you haven't been keeping track of his stuff outside of Nice and Thank You, I'm Sorry, definitely give his EP from last year, Slacker, a listen, and check out all the singles he's dropped, because they all are worth checking out. At the very least, they all have their own merits in their own way, even if they're all a bit different and show kind of a different side of Abe. Next, I have the Fox Theory Marie Finch split Faceplant. Again, just another really hefty dose of kind of emo-influenced indie rock by these 2 bands. Fox Theory's kind of been moving in their new lane lately, and I think this is kind of the first point where they've really arrived at, I think, what they wanted to sound like on their first EP, River Kids, which they released last year, but then totally removed from all streaming services, because they're like, we're just moving in a new direction. It's like, I see what you're doing.
I respect it.
And Marie Finch is, it's reductive to refer to it as a Early Eyes soul side project, because it just involves 3 members of the band Early Eyes, but it's so much more than that. It's one of the best like indie rock 3-song streaks that I've heard, and it's, I hope to hear more from them. I don't know if we will, but just because it took so long for even these 3 songs to get out, but
yeah, be
grateful for what you got. So I'm really glad we got some songs from each of these bands. It's a really great split. They fit really well together. I want to give a shout out to Partition's Prodigal Gun, really grungy, kind of 90s indie rock, just kind of covers a lot of different types of guitar music. Just really like in your face in the best way, while still not being like a hardcore record. It's very hardcore in spirit.
Yeah.
It came out at the very beginning of the year, to the point where it's it's kind of almost escaped my memory, but I'm so glad I remembered it because you listen to it once and it just kind of tips you on your head in the best way. And it's gets me excited for the 5 albums that Taylor's just kind of been sitting on.
Yeah.
So hopefully, I think they've teased towards a second Partition record coming soon.
Yeah.
On like social media. But
and if you can, I would know like we say this a lot, but like check out Partition live when you can.
Yeah, when shows come back, Partition is one of the best live bands in the cities, especially. And there's a lot of room for them to take like the spot for best live band now that Florists has called it quits. Pour one out for Florists. Another really, really great band that we are appreciative of. That we're glad that we got to see them live while they were in existence, and hell yeah to them. But yeah, definitely Partition, such a good live band and such a good studio band on this record. So really, if you don't know anything about Partition, you don't really need to. Just go in blind. You'll get everything you need to hear to know about them in the first couple songs, and you'll get hooked. And I'll do the last 2 really quick. 26 Bats put out a EP this year consisting of 2 of their prior singles from the last year or so and a couple new songs. The production on this one is really great. The horns sound amazing. Bailey Cogan's an incredible vocalist.
Yeah, with Carl Remus of part of their Kremlins.
Yeah, the Kremlins Collective has kind of been on one this year. They've put out a lot of cool stuff between this, the Lucid Vanguard EP,
the Warren Thomas Fenzi live
Atrium record. Check out all of those. But 26 Bats is kind of like the culmination in a lot of ways. I think gets me excited for what the band is working on next because their album Onyx was really good too. The last thing I want to shout out is just a single. I don't quite remember the name of the person who writes and performs under this name, but the name they are putting the music out is Smoke Roads, and the song is Silence. It's a really cool song that kind of like it does some cool stuff with like time and just plays with a lot of different elements that you wouldn't necessarily expect, just kind of based on how the song sounds on its surface. And it has a kind of a lot lying underneath that you might not pick up on the first listen or two. But with a first single that's this strong, it really gets my hopes up for what might come next, whether an EP, another single, an album, whatever it may be. I'm really looking forward to that. And that's Smoke Roads, and their song is Silence.
And then some of the records I'm going to shout out. I have a big old list here. I'm going to move through them as quickly as possible.
Sorry.
No, you're good. No, I just have a lot of bands I wrote down. Speaking of the Florists, they put out a record this year called Hold It Together, which is like, I felt like Hold It Together was a really fun, just really captured what they were like live on record and not in a chaotic way. They're just like a really fun, cutting, just very artsy kind of, I wouldn't say art rock, but kind of
it's like very performance art in a lot of ways.
Yeah, there it is. And that's just kind of what was captured on that record. And it happened to be the last release, I believe, put out on Heavy Meadow, another label we labeled that Jeremy Warden of Double Grave. He was running that, and
finally publicly went down just a month ago. But,
so,
like another thing we're grateful for the time we were given with them.
One of my favorite records. I have all of the Heavy Metal releases except for 2, and so I need to find them.
Yeah, I have most of them too, but I think you've got me beat.
Yeah, so check out Hold It Together. I wanted to talk about Another Heaven. They were going to put out a record this year, but due to COVID, they couldn't. But they have been putting out a series of singles. They put out 6 originals, 3 covers, with each of their 3 singles series, as they're calling it, and it's just fantastic. I love Another Heaven, just their mix of shoegaze and just punk rock, and it's a great time. You should check those out.
And they're actual like full lengths from previous times. Like or whatever. That is.
Yeah.
No.
Forever, ever.
That's what I'm thinking.
Forever. I wanted to talk about, to continue with my cheating on releases here.
Who are you cheating on?
Not cheating on, cheating with. The band Dana Sterling and their EP Departure. Dana Sterling's made up of Natalie Grace, who was in Sleep Debt, and a bunch of other really cool like Screamo and
Metal.
Screamo Violence bands.
Skrylance.
Yes. Ren Fontana of Double Grave, and then and a member of Grogus and someone else. And it was a fantastic Scrams release that made it on some writers list, which was really cool.
Wasn't that Dan Ozzy's?
Maybe, I don't remember. I remember you just sending it to me. It's a really great the dynamic between Ren and Natalie on this one is really great because Natalie Grace's scream is just very visceral, and partner that with Ren's bark, and then just screamo from Minneapolis. It sounds like someone throwing something through a window. It's just,
or makes you want to do the same.
It's exactly. So go check out that one. I want to talk about Maul and their EP release, Monarchy of Mold. They're in North Dakota. They're basically a Minnesota death metal band. That's the classic.
They're from Fargo, right?
Yeah,
that's basically Minnesota.
Yeah, and they've performed with a ton of Minnesota people, including Optimal Crime. And so Monarchy of Mold is very, very kind of almost traditional death metal, guttural vocals,
Cookie Monster features.
Oh, absolutely. So that one's really good. I wanted to talk about Split Fountain with their debut EP Crosstown. Sounds very classic indie rock, kind of classic rock influenced. I'll pick a couple more and then we can call it a day here.
No, I still have all my national ones I'm going to power through. And we have one special surprise.
We have one special surprise. Want to talk about Lamp Noise, Star Planet? They put that.
I still haven't listened to it.
It's a really, it's funny. It's something Brett has met. Brett, who was in Calvin Heights and did some other solo stuff, now is under the Young Hymnals. I can't remember off the top of my head his name performing before that. Anyway, Lamp Noise is Brett and his wife Elise. They're kind of duo, and they released a Star Planet, which is this concept record because it's a Brett Carey release about kind of him and Elise's relationship growing. And it was funny because it's something he mentioned during the very last Calvin Heights interview I did with him, and so it's fun to see that realized here.
Yeah, come full circle
on that album. I want to talk about New Primals with Horse Girl Energy.
Horse Girl Energy.
Some fantastic, very manic punk
post-punk,
from
post-hardcore
from Learning Curve, off of Learning Curve Records. I want to talk about Caldwell and his and Sam's releases there. If you love kind of that post-hardcore influence, he released 2 EPs, which was I Don't Know Myself as Well as I Once Thought, 1 and 2. Those are fantastic post-hardcore releases. It's just him working on it. It's fun. Sam was a former classmate of mine at Northwestern. It's kind of fun to see what he was able to do from there. And then I wanted to talk about the Bloodies, and their debut record, Salem Bitch Trials. Fantastic name. It's a really great look from the world of kind of taking the trope of the woman scorned and then filtering it through a goth horror punk band.
I would just want to shout out some of my favorite national releases, a few of which I was somehow blessed to cover or almost cover, but either way I wanted to give them all some love. My album of the year is unequivocally Doglegs Melee. It's I think the only record from this year that made it in like my top 5 most listened on Spotify that wasn't like depressing ambient or like comedy music, because I listened to like one Flight of the Conchords song like every other day. It's so good. Equipment put out a new EP, All You Admire. This band from Brooklyn, I think, Stand Side, put out an album earlier in the year called Viewing. Another one of my really, really like total favorite EPs of the year, and probably my favorite interview of the year, was with The Weekdays about their EP, The Fabric of Our Lives. I am more excited for their forthcoming record than anything else that has ever been made, because it sounds like it was tailor-made for me, based on their descriptions of theater kids and high fantasy gaming and just nerd stuff. I'm just like, all of that plus good music. Oh, count me in.
Yes.
I want to shout out Man Dancing, their latest album, The Good Sweat, out on Take This to Heart Records. Really good kind of like indie rock, folk influenced, emo influenced, just really good record. Clear Body put out their debut just I think a week or so ago. It's just really great shoegaze record called One More Day. I want to shout out the only Canadian record we covered from this year, Golfer's self-titled record. Came on Top Shelf. I was somehow lucky to interview one of the members of the band, and it was kind of a dream come true because I've loved their records since Dog Blessed came out a couple years ago. They're just a really cool kind of math rock, emo record, emo band. It is an emo record, and they're really, really cool if you haven't heard of them. And the last one I want to shout out is this Denton, Texas post-hardcore kind of screamo band called Record Setter. They put out an album called I Owe You Nothing. And I wanted to shout out another couple others that are kind of in that vein, but I feel like this one kind of bridges the gap between the emo that I've just been drawn to so much this year and the post-hardcore I found myself loving as time goes on. It's a really fantastic record. You should check it out.
So I wanted to shout out. Well, one I went to throw in. Check out Big Mouth Recordings when you can. They have some run by two members of the band Gadget. They have some really great national hardcore acts that if you need to, you should go listen to, like Wide Man. Great record. But I wanted to shout out Maggie Gently. She put out an EP called Good Cry earlier this year, which really chronicles the breakup of her former band. Teenage Halloween's self-titled release. It's a really great continuation of the former Eternal Roast. I wanted to talk about the split put out by Brace Cove and Chillwave, which was done with Floral Patterns and California Cousins, which is a really great different sides of the same coin. Screamo act. So one is like Floral Patterns is much more melodic, and California Cousins is just riffs for days. Fantastic. I wanted to also shout out the Year of the Knife record, Internal Incarceration.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Felt really, it was just definitely a pandemic record without being a pandemic record. Plus the Tsunami release that came out this year as well. Which was just, I think it was just Tsunami.
Yeah, I think it's just self-titled.
And
that's Tsunami with no T.
With no T, yeah. And then one more here. This was probably something I should have mentioned in my local one, but the final record from Fragile Canyons was Lavender.
Right.
They put out, every year they usually put out a record, and Andy has since moved out of country due to his job. And so they have put out their final record for the time being. So go check all of those out. They're all great. So, yeah.
The last thing
is
we can't cover this in any capacity or really shout it out too much, but because we played on it.
Yes.
And because we're in this band. National Park Service put on an EP.
Yes, you should listen to it.
You can't yell at us for shouting it out because it's cool.
It's an EP.
We got an album coming out soon, and if you
all we can tell you is it's an EP.
It's an EP.
There's a series of songs on it.
There are several songs. They were written by the band. They were recorded socially distanced.
Mm-hmm. The music on it, especially the horns, are not MIDI this time.
The horns are definitely not MIDI. They're kind of mid. They're not MIDI. There's free jazz, if that's your thing.
Yes.
If you're a really big Ornette Coleman fan, I think you'd be a really big National Park Service fan. I think there's really it's a very easy connection to make. So yeah, check that shit out if you're feeling the vibes. And if you don't, we'll know, and we'll steal your groceries.
It's true. Well, thank you so much for this great year. It was a fun year of growth here for Ear Coffee.
Yeah,
we did a ton of stuff that we didn't think we would this year, which was kind of cool.
Yeah, we
with the video work, and
Joe started doing some video series that we're going to continue, which we're really excited about, and they're putting a lot of work into that. We actually just shot one today. The day we're recording, that we're very excited to put out soon.
Hopefully, video podcasts will come soon.
Video podcasts for all you Joe Rogan fans out there, because he's the only one that's ever done that and ever will do that. Sorry to Spotify, you can suck it. Daniel Eck, I'll kick your face in. Unless you promise to give artists more money per stream, you should do that. You should just do that, and then we won't kick you. Because I don't think you could take anyone in a fight. You look like a human waffle. I don't think you could do anyone any harm. And then thank you to City Pages for. First of all, their incredible coverage for countless of artists over the years, last, like decades and decades.
Because they were doing what we wanted to do before we could do it.
We were even like capable of writing.
Yes.
Or really even like writing anything that didn't suck. Whether that's true now is up to you, the reader. But also, that's what happens when you write blogs when you're illiterate. You don't know if it's good or not. You can't read what you're saying. You're like, this could be good. No one will tell me. But they were kind enough to give us a shout out as the best charity comp of the year. And so thank you to them for that. Thank you to for them just in general. They're a huge inspiration for us. And we'll miss them a lot. corporate bullshit strikes again.
It's true.
Capitalism is hell. And also just thank you to all the bands that were on the charity comp. We're hoping to, probably won't happen this year because mental illness in it, bruv.
Yeah.
But hopefully to keep doing that in some capacity in the future. But if you've ever listened to the Your Coffee podcast, A, I'm sorry. B, thank you.
Yeah.
In that order. We wouldn't be able to do this without the bands that are kind and foolish enough to let us talk to them and are open enough to share their lives and their music with us. So thank you to them. Thank you to anyone that's interacted or supported us in any way, shape, or form. We're in it for the money, so you can afford to tip us next time, you chumps. Capitalism forever.
The Your Coffee podcast is a companion to the blog of the same name. If you like this episode, please leave us a rate and review so we can stand out among the other music podcasts. You can follow us at Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram @Your Coffee. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.